This level is named Into the Closet, and this was one of the early concepts we had for a level, because since we have the theme of a child, and since you play a child in the game, we have the theme of children, and so we looked at things that we were afraid of when we were young, and some common themes. And closet doors was one that we started looking at early, and we imagined, I think it started out as just a room covered in closet doors, but then it ended up being a whole level with only hallways and rooms covered in closet doors, and then being in some of the closets and traversing them.
So I really like the variety that we managed to get into the game. Like every level is kind of a contained space in terms of art assets and stuff. So we, like here for instance, this whole level is like inside a big closet with closet doors everywhere, and also kind of strange gravitational laws of physics, where stuff just sticks to the ceiling, and it's really, we wanted it to be very confusing and feel much bigger than it actually is, and it was also an environment that stood out from the other ones, as they all do in certain ways.
This chapter also works well as the visuals resembles a broken home or just a chaotic home, which works well with the theme.
So we had a lot of trouble optimizing this level. Everything is constructed in one big scene in Unity, and it has a lot of closet doors everywhere, and actually it has a lot less doors than we actually wanted to have. We wanted there to be hallways leading everywhere and doors going in one place, and you exit in a completely different place on the other side. Really confusing, but still it was supposed to feel very big, so we made it actually big, and we got to pay for that, as the frame rate was very hard to keep down. So as this level is rather big and confusing by design, we needed kind of a red thread for the player to follow through the level. And this endless drawer, as we call it, works in that fashion, as well as being a bridge that you have to extend in order to reach the deeper parts of the level. So it works both as a guide for the player, but also a blocker and a gate that we can use to limit the player's progression.
Tell us about this drawer. Was it fun?
Well, it's a really long drawer. It's called the endless drawer internally here, and it's about 200 meters long, I think. And you need to move it and walk on it, and it needs to collide properly with the geometry, well, the physics engine isn't really designed to properly handle 200-meter long drawers. So there's been a lot of interesting problems with that, like it getting stuck in various things and exploding basically sometimes.
Yeah, I think it also was like, I remember once that sometimes you just started jumping when you went on the drawer. Sometimes the drawer was just kind of jiggling about.
Yeah, it would sometimes just get stuck in geometry and basically kind of continuously explode for a while, and it would just shake a lot. And walking on it was horrible because the player would shake and sometimes you'd fall off, and it's horrible.
There's 3 specific events happening when you actually break bottles, and it gets more and more kind of tense, scary, and the more and more presence of a monster each time you break glasses. And that's kind of also to show people that glasses are dangerous, and also to reinforce the idea about the monster and the bottles, and kind of make people think about the association between those two.
The endless drawer, which we call it, is also a thing we wanted to do because we think that it fits the theme of something realistic but still being very unrealistic, so it fits the theme of the child's imagination. A drawer that just stretches into, like, it seems like it never stops, it goes on forever.
Right here we have like a little secret door. If you found this, it means that you got an achievement, which is cool, because you can click on this little thing, which is a sort of morphed version of the music box, and you play a horribly perverted version of the lullaby.
Well, first, I would like us to have populated the small closets everywhere. Now, almost none of the doors are openable, but our vision was to have most of them openable, and inside you would find something that was sort of unique. But of course, that was kind of crazy to begin with, so we didn't.
If you twist the globe for a while, it actually starts playing a little bit of a melody.
this room, I do like it. And as you can see, this is very reminiscent of the room in the intro part of the level. You have the same type of floor with markings on it, and you also have codes everywhere. And this is where code becomes a theme for this level, which is also because of how the monster is designed. That is just a big code. We wanted the player to go through it and then trigger the codes to suddenly move, to make it feel as if there was something in the room with the player. And this is one of the points of the game where the physics solution does not work out perfectly, at least not the way we move the codes. We add force at the codes so that they move, and all of these codes have bones and stuff, right? So all of the codes are rigged and have bones, and we add force to them, but it just does not look like we wanted them to. We really wanted it to look like something was actually moving through the codes, but yeah, so it didn't work out quite as well as I'd hoped.
We wanted to connect the breaking of bottles to scary atmosphere, and you shouldn't want to break the bottles because then you spawn the monster. So this is where we show that this happens for the first time.
One thing that I think is quite special about the game is how we have kind of resolved the entire game and how events play out through physics. Well, at least most of it. So where it would probably have been easier just animating stuff and have a predictive behavior, we instead work with physics for the entire game and how the player moves, from how the player moves to how apples roll to how doors open. There are some animations, of course, but there's a lot of... The game is built a lot on top of physics.
This is the game's hub room in a way, like the same as the painting area in the level 3. This is sort of where your main objective can be seen. Like there's a star door, which is quite beautiful, and you kind of see a texture reminiscent of the memory fields from previous levels.
So you immediately know what to do and how to get to the imagination object inside of the room, because you just came through the moon key door that we call it. You have just been introduced to how this door works, so you know that as soon as you see the star key door and the imagination field behind it, you know that there's the imagination field and there's a door blocking me and I need a star shape of some kind.
So when the player drops back into this room, I think for a while it was a bit confusing with the whole backtracking, and it's not quite backtracking. The player goes in, blah blah blah. So when you return here, you have gone in a loop. You've gone back a different way than the one you came. So you end up in a place that it was before, but it's not that easy to recognize as somewhere you have been. But as soon as we got these big glowing doors in, it was instantly recognizable. So this drawer is another thing that didn't really work well with a physics-based solution. It used to be driven by the physics system, so it actually didn't stop unless something physically blocked it. But since it moved so fast, it would go straight through the object before detecting that it was there and cause a lot of trouble and making the level unfinishable for a lot of players. And it actually was like that for a couple of days after initial release. So we spent some time and remade it completely using much more controllable animations. Looks just the same, but it's a lot more stable.
The drawer also works as a red thread throughout the whole chapter, as it's very unorganized and chaotic layout-wise. You're still always following the drawer.
There was one ID where you looked into a closet and you looked down on yourself from an earlier part of the level, like a time portal through a closet. I liked that ID, but it was hard to implement, and it was just a fun idea. It didn't really add to the story, but it's something I would have liked to see.
Isn't the remnants of that actually where we are now? Like you kind of go and you get teleported up in the air.
Yes.
So that was the space right here that we actually were supposed to see that.
Yes.
Right here we have one of the rooms that is sort of, I think, one of the coolest rooms that no one really probably noticed, because it has so many cool small tricks to it. Like you can go into this little side door and you would actually get on top and look all the way down. And later when you get back, the whole room will have rotated, and not too many people noticed that. Actually, I sure didn't until someone told me the first time I tried it. I think we also had an idea here that you would see yourself if you go to the secret kind of exit, and you would look down and see yourself, but that was kind of a bit tricky, I guess.
This was also actually a game mechanic for a puzzle that was used in an earlier iteration of the level, where you come into the room, and if you look up, you can see that you are in a long hallway, and there's a very long way to the top, and then you would go through this door, and then you would end up at the very top, and you would have to push like a box down, and so that this box could be used down on the first floor and in order to reach something. But this didn't survive the iterations, probably because it's a really weird, not intuitive mechanic, and this stuff is hard to introduce.
Like we spent so much time iterating this puzzle, which is sort of like it started out as a perspective puzzle. Now it's not quite that, I guess, or
Not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, this room started out with a perspective-based puzzle that had the player had to get into position in order to see the objects from a specific angle, and then pick up a bottle that was actually way too big, but it looked the right size from the right angle, and it was a really, really tough idea to convey to the player. So we ended up having to take it out, and we replaced it with a copy of the kitchen from the first level in order to tie these levels better together. It worked okay in the end, though if we had managed to design it in a way that everyone could understand, or at least to be possible to figure out, I think that would have been a more unique solution to it.
Yeah, it was definitely a hard defeat for us, because the idea is super cool, and this is one of the things that we really learned, that this is another example of how a design on paper is just 150% different when you get it in to the actual game, and because you'll just see how players that does not have the same top-down understanding of the game as yourself, the creators. So it started off as with one of the coolest ideas, and then you just or we just realized during the production that this was too hard, and we really couldn't make it work. We tried really, really hard for a long time. The room had several iterations, but then we just ended up scrapping it. But the cool thing about it is, I think that could work as the core of a whole game, though. But that's how it would have to have been introduced, I think, or much earlier in the level, and then it would have just turned out as the perspective level instead of anything else. So it just wasn't worth it in the end.
The most frustrating thing about the whole perspective idea was that when every single tester who understood what we were doing when we told them what they should do thought it was really cool, but I don't think anyone figured it out on their own because we didn't present it correctly.
What's this? You don't know what
like right now it's sort of, you got everything cool, and you look forward to getting back to hub. I kind of like the fact that for all the other levels we had this, after you picked up the memory piece it was safe, you know, like there was only safety until the pipe. And for this one, this is the last one since we established the rule that it was kind of safe, and this time we decided to break it with a heart-wrenching cutscene-ish thing.
The story builds up to this very specific point in time where teddy bear actually gets caught by the monster and is killed. And this was also at the time when Teddy was evil, and so to serve as another distraction, and to make the players not think of Teddy being the bad character. But we decided to keep it because it fits really well with the story, and also this is why Teddy says upon picking up the imagination object, the fourth, he says, "You have the final piece, let's hurry." Yeah, it's just to build up to the cutscene and just make it.
So this is the beginning of the end of the game, and as Teddy has just missed his arm and it's lying in front of you, you can see cotton from Teddy just falling through the air slowly.
Not now. Not now. Sweetie, be quiet now. Mommy had a Please go somewhere else. I'll just He will not take you from me. If you can't fight, then do what Mommy says. I'm going to be very angry. None of us want that.
I will find you.
This is the last time we visit the hub in the game, and this time the transition to the hub level is very different from the ones seen in the other levels. You don't go through the pipe this time, and this sort of marks the transition from the child piecing things together in his head and sort of understanding more, and for the player it marks the transition from the dreamlike to the real world. And here also, since the player don't have Teddy anymore, but we have Teddy's arm, the player can use Teddy's arm to unlock and open the door. And this was also something we did for the feels. Like we really wanted it to be sad and to feel like a loss when you don't have Teddy anymore. So this is we wanted Teddy to be the only one to be able to open this door, to make him feel like Teddy helps you and he's powerful. He can do some things that you can't, and you need him. And so when you lose him, you don't have the safety anymore. You can't use him as a light source. And then luckily you have his arm, and you can use this to continue. I really like the transition from the hub level to the house, back to the child's room. Just how the screen fades and with the ambient music, and then opening the door and from the closet, and sort of realizing that you've been hiding in the closet. All the way throughout this level you walk downstairs, and on the way you will see and find many different objects, all of which you have seen during the game and you have interacted with, like the jigsaw pieces from level 3 and the moon and star-shaped keys from level 4, the owls from level 2. And this is done to tell the player that they have been in the house the whole time. It's been the child's imagination running wild, and all the scary parts have been caused by the mother being drunk and making a mess in the house, and just creating an environment that feels unsafe for the child.
And 2 months before release, I guess, we just changed the whole thing. And I'm really satisfied with how much clearer the whole thing became overnight, almost. Of course, it's been our first project, so we're all inexperienced, and there's been a lot of, like, not necessarily disagreements, but there's been like a bit different ways we want to go, each of us, during the production. So it was nice when we ended up changing that everyone seemed to kind of come to peace with the new ending and really agree that this was the best way we could go with the ending, with the mother as an alcoholic figure. And the whole story became more centered around this one theme, instead of being all over the place, nobody understanding much of what really was going on.
The last thing I hope people that play the game appreciate is that it's the thematics of the game, right? Like the subject that we want to explore, and how fragile children can be, and I hope that is appreciated, because it's something we wanted the player to kind of build experience he's having on.
So in this level, we kind of go full circle and end up right where the game began. It really makes it feel like an ending and closure to everything.
We also really wanted the mother to be experienced as she's not evil or just straight up a villain in any sense, but we wanted to portray the side of being a human and how a person dealing with personal problems and in this case being a divorce, a breakup, a bad relationship, and how this can affect a human being. So she's not at all evil, but she's just not capable of taking care of herself and the child at the same time. She loves the child, but she's not a good fit for taking care of and also it feels so open that it can be interpreted as anything. Like some people have been mentioning that you can interpret this as the child actually dying. So it's open for interpretation.
Stay away from me!
I'm sorry. I never meant to. It's too much.
The story was changed, not to something completely different, but we basically just cut a part out that we wanted to be the main story, which was the teddy being evil and all that, and we just cut that out and used the mother and the father situation, the family situation, as the core story, just because all of those elements were in the game anyways, and it just worked a lot better.
Hi there, little one. Come here. Did you like your gift? What happened to his arm? Don't worry. We'll fix it up.